Luke had spent most of his life riding across wide, empty land where the sky touched the ground and the wind carried dust like old memories. He was a quiet cowboy, the kind people trusted, but didn't always understand. He didn't talk much about his past, because there wasn't much to talk about. His life was made of long rides, tired nights, small camps, and honest work. Most days, he liked the peace of the open land. But some days, the loneliness felt too heavy to carry. Everyone in the nearest town knew one thing for sure. Luke never complained. Even when the storms were rough or the cattle drives were long, he stayed steady. He had that kind of spirit people respected. Still, even a strong man could be challenged by nature, and one summer arrived harsher than anyone expected. No rain for weeks. Wells dried up. Streams shrank into mud. Even the animals struggled to find water. And that was how Luke found himself in real trouble one burning afternoon. He had been riding for 2 days straight, under a sun that felt like fire on his skin. His canteen was empty. His horse, a loyal brown mare he named Misty, slowed with every mile. Luke tried to save his own water for Misty, but even that wasn't enough. He could feel her shaking, and every time he touched her neck, he felt heat rising like she was burning alive under the sun. Luke knew he needed to find water soon, or both of them would collapse. While riding, he noticed something far ahead, just a thin line of green in the distance. Grass, maybe a few wildflowers, maybe even a water source. His tired eyes struggled to focus, but hope pushed him forward. The land around him was dry and cracked, so any green meant something unusual. He steered Misty toward it, whispering soft encouragement, trying to keep her going. As they got closer, Luke's heartbeat quickened. He realized where they were heading. A narrow ravine with 2 tall rock walls on either side. And hidden inside that ravine was the one place everyone warned him never to touch: the forbidden spring. Luke stopped his horse and stared at the entrance of the ravine. Even from far away, he remembered the stories he heard growing up. Old cowhands whispered about a spring that didn't belong to any man. Some said it was sacred. Others said a spirit watched over it and punished anyone who tried to take its water. A few travelers claimed strange things happened if you got too close: voices in the wind, footsteps when no one was there, shapes moving at night. Luke had always thought those stories were just old tales meant to scare children. But now, standing in front of the ravine, he felt unsure. His throat was dry. His head felt light. Misty's breathing had turned weak, uneven. Luke knew they didn't have the strength to find another water source, and even if they tried, they might not survive the journey. He looked at Misty again, and his heart sank. She trusted him with her life. He couldn't let her suffer. Luke took a deep breath and decided he didn't have a choice. He guided Misty slowly into the ravine. The air changed the moment they entered. Instead of burning heat, a cool breeze brushed against Luke's face. It felt strange, almost unnatural after the long ride under the blazing sun. The walls around him rose high, blocking out the sky. It became quiet. So quiet, Luke could hear his own heartbeat echo against the stone. The deeper they went, the more alive the plants became. Grass turned green and moist. Wildflowers grew in clusters, their colors bright and untouched by the drought outside. Luke felt a strange peace settling around him, like the ravine was watching but not angry, just waiting. Finally, he saw it. A clear pool of water, shining like glass under the thin sunlight that slipped through cracks in the rock ceiling. It was small, but beautiful. Hidden, like a secret treasure. Misty lifted her head weakly, smelling the water, and Luke quickly climbed off the saddle to help her. He let her drink first. She moved slowly, lowering her mouth to the water. The moment she touched it, her body seemed to relax. Her breathing steadied. Luke didn't understand how water alone could make such a difference, but he didn't question it. He felt grateful. Only after Misty drank her fill did Luke allow himself to kneel by the spring. He dipped his hands into the water, and felt a shock of cold rush through his palms. It wasn't normal cold. It was as if the water held life, energy, something older than the land itself. Luke brought a handful to his lips, and the moment the water touched his tongue, a wave of calm swept through him. The pain in his throat disappeared. His exhaustion faded slowly, like the water was washing it away. His vision sharpened. His mind cleared. For a moment, Luke forgot the stories. He forgot the warnings. All he felt was relief. But when he reached for the water again, everything changed. Just as his fingers touched the surface, a sound broke the silence. A whisper. Soft. Gentle. Unmistakably close. "You are mine." Luke froze. His breath stopped in his chest. The voice wasn't loud, but it felt too near, as if someone was leaning beside his ear. He spun around so fast his boots scraped the rock, but no one was there. Only the still water, the rocks, and Misty, who lifted her head in alarm, ears twitching. Luke swallowed hard, unsure if he imagined it. Maybe he was tired. Maybe the heat had damaged his mind. But the whisper had been too clear, too real. He stepped back from the spring, heart racing. The air around him felt heavier now, like the ravine was closing in. He could hear the faint rustle of leaves, though there was no wind. Even Misty grew uneasy, backing up slowly as if sensing something Luke couldn't see. Then the whisper came again. "You are mine." This time it didn't come from behind him. It rose from the water itself, as though the spring had spoken. Luke's skin chilled despite the heat outside the ravine. The rocks around him seemed to vibrate softly. The water's surface rippled, though he hadn't touched it. Fear grabbed Luke's chest. He didn't wait to understand what was happening. He grabbed Misty's reins, climbed into the saddle, and urged her out of the ravine. She didn't resist, she bolted forward, almost tripping in her rush to escape. When they reached open land, Luke finally slowed her down. He wiped his forehead, which was covered in cold sweat. His heart still beat fast. He looked back at the ravine, half expecting something to follow him. But nothing came. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him. That night, Luke made camp under the open sky. He tried to rest, but sleep didn't come easily. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard that whisper again. "You are mine." He tried to tell himself it wasn't real. Just a tired mind playing tricks. But deep down, he knew better. The voice had been too close, too clear, too full of meaning. Luke realized something else too. The forbidden spring didn't just give him water. It marked him. Something ancient had noticed him, chosen him, claimed him. And even though the land around him was silent, Luke felt the presence following him, soft, quiet, patient. As the stars spread across the sky, Luke lay awake, staring into the darkness, wondering what he had brought into his life. And somewhere in the wind, faint but certain, came the whisper again. "You are mine." Luke woke early the next morning, long before the sky turned pale. He hadn't slept much. Every time the wind shifted, he thought he heard the whisper again. Sometimes it sounded close. Sometimes it came from far away, like someone calling from the other side of a canyon. No matter where it came from, it carried the same message. Soft, but certain. "You are mine." Luke packed his things carefully, trying to focus on normal tasks. He checked Misty's saddle. He made sure the cinches were tight. He kicked out the last of the fire's embers to make sure the land didn't catch flame. Everything he did followed habit, but his mind stayed restless. Even Misty didn't behave like she usually did. She kept lifting her head, ears turning toward places where nothing moved. She snorted at empty space. It made Luke feel less alone, and also more uneasy. He tried to convince himself that it was only his imagination. But one truth refused to leave his mind. He had heard a woman's voice. Not angry. Not threatening. just claiming. Soft and familiar, even though he had never heard it before. Luke started riding toward town to resupply, but every mile felt different now. The land didn't seem empty anymore. It felt like someone else was riding beside him. Someone he couldn't see. When he stopped near a ridge to rest Misty, the air cooled suddenly, just like it had inside the ravine. The breeze brushed against his face the same way the water had cooled his hands. It didn't feel dangerous, but it felt intentional, like a sign that something was following him. As Luke continued his journey, the whisper returned, not loud, but clear enough to make his heart beat fast. "You are mine." This time, Misty reacted too. She stepped sideways, snorting nervously. Luke whispered softly to calm her. But even as he comforted his horse, he knew the whisper wasn't a mistake. The spring hadn't only healed him, and Misty, it had connected something to him. Something alive and aware. Luke reached town around noon, exhausted from a worry he couldn't explain. Usually he felt at peace when he arrived. The small wooden buildings, dusty roads, and familiar faces made him feel like he belonged somewhere, if only for a short time. But today, everything looked strange, like the world had shifted a little while he wasn't watching. He walked into the general store to buy supplies. Old Mr. Timms, who ran the place, noticed Luke's tired eyes and limp movements. "You all right, son?" he asked, studying Luke closely. Luke hesitated. He didn't want to sound foolish, and he certainly didn't want to talk about voices in the wind. So he told only part of the truth. Been a long few days. Had to ride farther than planned. Mr. Timms nodded with sympathy. The drought's been rough. Heard someone spotted movement at the Forbidden Spring last night. Some folks say it was the Spring Guardian. Luke went still. Guardian? Mr. Timms leaned closer. Old legend. They say a woman's spirit watches over that place. Anyone who drinks disrespectfully suffers for it. Anyone who drinks with a good heart might find protection. Or something more. His voice lowered. Strange things happen around that spring, Luke. Luke forced a weak smile and paid for his things. But his mind felt heavier as he left the store. The whispers. The cool air. Misty's reactions. The strange energy in the ravine. It all connected to the old stories he had always ignored. Now, they didn't feel like stories anymore. They felt real. As Luke rode away from town, he tried to shake off the tension. Maybe the Guardian was just a legend told to keep travelers away. But the whisper he heard wasn't a legend. It was real. And it carried emotion, loneliness, longing, something almost protective. That evening, Luke set up camp near a quiet slope. The sky turned deep orange, then purple, then black filled with stars. He fed Misty and sat by the fire, trying to find comfort in the warm glow. But the night felt different again, too quiet, too watchful. Luke felt the breeze touch his shoulder gently, as though someone brushed past him, and then he saw her. At first, she appeared like a faint shape near the edge of the light. A soft white glow around the outline of a woman. She stood still, watching him. Luke's heart stopped. He reached for his gun out of instinct. But she stepped forward, and the fear slipped from his hand before he even touched the weapon. She wasn't threatening. She wasn't angry. Her presence was calm, almost sorrowful. As she stepped closer, Luke saw her clearly, a young woman, beautiful, with long flowing hair, dark eyes that reflected the firelight, and a white dress that moved gently as if touched by a wind he couldn't feel. Luke stood slowly, his breath shallow. The woman tilted her head. Her voice was the same whisper he had heard at the spring, soft but filled with meaning. "You drank from my spring. You called to me." Luke shook his head. "I didn't call anyone. I was just trying to survive." "I know," she said. "That is why I answered." Luke didn't know what to say. He couldn't make sense of her words, yet something inside him felt them deeply. She stepped a little closer, but she kept a gentle distance, as if respecting his fear. "I protect the spring," she continued, "and everyone who seeks it for selfish reasons fails to reach it. But you came with truth in your heart. You needed help, not power. You needed life, not control." Luke swallowed. She nodded softly. "When you touched the water, our paths joined. I have watched over the spring for many years, waiting for someone who carried a pure heart. I chose to protect you." Her voice softened even more. "You are not mine to own, but you are mine to guard." A long silence followed. Luke didn't feel afraid anymore. Instead, he felt strangely calm, like he was standing near someone who already understood him better than most people ever had. He lowered his hands slowly and took a deep breath. "Why me?" he asked quietly. She looked at him with soft eyes. "Because you asked for nothing except life, and because you are alone, like me." Her words settled deep inside him. Luke had lived years with only a horse and a hat for company. He knew loneliness better than he knew comfort. And now he realized the spirit woman, this guardian, knew loneliness just as well, maybe even more. Over the next days, Luke traveled, and the guardian followed him in her quiet way. Sometimes, he couldn't see her, but he felt her presence. When storms rose on the horizon, the wind shifted and guided him to safer paths. When wolves crept too close one night, Misty sensed something unseen, pushing them away. When Luke fell from his horse after a long ride, he felt invisible hands soften his landing. He wasn't alone anymore, not completely. One evening, Luke returned to the forbidden spring. Not because he feared it, but because he wanted answers. He stood by the water that had saved his life. The reflection of the sky shimmered on its surface, calm and welcoming. And then he saw her again, standing beside him. Luke didn't step back this time. He faced her quietly. "I don't belong to anyone," he said softly. "Not even a spirit." The guardian smiled gently, understanding him without anger. "I never wished to claim your freedom," she whispered. "Only to keep you safe. You can go where you want, live as you choose, but the bond you awakened, it will never disappear." Luke looked into her eyes. They held no force, no demand, only honesty. He realized he didn't fear her anymore, and he didn't hate the bond she spoke of. It was strange, yes, but it felt like a comfort he hadn't known he needed. The guardian stepped back slowly. "I will remain here. This is my place. But when you need me, I will hear you. And when danger comes, I will stand beside you." Luke touched the water gently. It rippled softly, as if answering him. He whispered, "Thank you," and he meant it more deeply than he expected. When Luke rode away from the spring for the last time, he felt lighter, not because the bond had broken, but because he finally understood it. The spring hadn't cursed him. It had connected him to a lonely spirit who had chosen to protect him not as a possession, but as a companion in a world where both had walked alone for too long. And from that day forward, every breeze that touched his shoulder reminded him that someone watched over him, not with control, but with quiet, loyal care.